All right, good morning, afternoon, evening. This lesson's going to kind of have two parts. So you've got Romanticism, which is something that I'll go into a bit more detail because it's important for at least three of the poems that are in the anthology, and Ozymandias, which is the poem. Some of you, if you were in on the last day we were fully open, would have kind of come across this before already. So hopefully that puts you in at a head start. But firstly, we need to look at Romanticism. So the Romantic movement was kind of the late 1700s, early 1800s, and it was all about political, social, and spiritual change. So change in society, change in the way we think and feel. And these are the poets that we study in our anthology. So Wordsworth, Shelley, and Blake. And so the things that we discuss here are really important in terms of when we're looking at, in particular, these three poems. But also we can kind of make links. If you remember in the exposure lesson, I talked about how we could kind of link that to Romanticism. So this is the kind of thing I was talking about. So I just want to just to clarify, I know it's got romantic in the word, but what we think about romance and this idea of love is not about that. What it is about, it's about nature, and the power of nature and how that can change us. It's a really complicated topic. It's something that you probably look at more in A level or even at degree level. So I just want to kind of try and simplify it, give you a few terms that you can kind of go away with and learn. And if we can just drop some of these things in when we're analyzing, just to kind of add to the context and the meaning behind these poems, then we should be onto a winner in terms of getting those higher responses. So the first thing then is society, and the Romantics wanted social change. They were inspired by the idea of freedom, and they saw the exploitation of the poor by governments as evil. So again, we're at this time where people are wanting change. They're not happy with society, and that's in particular when we look at London, Blake's poem, something that we'll kind of pick up on. And a quote from the website at the bottom, it says, "For the world to be regenerated, the Romantics said that it was necessary to start all over again with a childlike perspective." So they believed that children were special because they were innocent and uncorrupted, enjoying a precious affinity with nature. So yeah, the idea of childhood innocence, and that I think they were really trying to kind of show that as adults we should have this kind of innocent childlike mindset as well, for us to become more pure and more at one with nature. So the significance of nature then. So romantic poetry often shows the appreciation of nature. And so particularly in Wordsworth's poem, which we'll look at in the next lesson, it's about kind of being awestruck by nature and kind of how powerful nature is. So the power of nature, which we'll also kind of see in Shelley's poem in this lesson as well, and also the desire to kind of be at one with its power. Okay, so when we're looking at these poems, always look at how they're kind of portraying nature and our relationship with nature as well. Okay, so now we're getting onto some terms that are going to probably be a little bit unfamiliar. So take some notes. There'll be some questions at the end of this little section on that. This one's called the sublime. All right, so to understand the sublime, I've tried to put some kind of simple definitions down. So extraordinary experiences that take us beyond ourselves, and the strongest emotion the mind is capable of feeling. All right, um, so these poems, or in particularly Wordsworth's poem in the prelude, will kind of discuss how we can be at one with nature. But if you can see down here, it also says Wordsworth finds the sublime in nature. He finds the awe in the beautiful forms of nature, but he also finds terror. Okay, so these real heightened emotions that these people are kind of exploring in terms of how powerful nature is, and almost how insignificant we are in terms of the whole idea of nature. And so that kind of follows onto this. So pantheism. So if you think about atheism, you've probably come across that term before, with kind of the belief that there is no kind of ultimate God. Well, pantheism is kind of the belief that God is everywhere. So the whole universe is basically God. That the whole universe is in control of our lives. It has power over us. And there's not a lot we can do about that. So we can either appreciate the nature, we can worship the nature, or we can also kind of be terrified by it as well. Okay, so I mean, that was very, very brief, and you're likely to be a bit confused at the moment. So I've just put some tasks on here that if you kind of pause here and do these tasks, it should kind of help you, whether that be rewind, go back and listen to my explanations of these things, or even better, if you do a bit of Googling, a bit of research onto these things, and really look into the Romantics, maybe watch some videos on YouTube or something like that, just to get a clear sense of what the Romantic movement was, because it will help your interpretations of these poems. Okay, so I know it's difficult. I've tried to simplify it as much as possible, but have a go, be resilient, have a look for it, pause now and have a go at these tasks. Okay, so Ozymandias then, the poem. So just before we get into it, Ozymandias is kind of the Greek name for Ramesses II, who was a great Egyptian ruler. So already we know that this poem is going to be about the power, and in this case, it's the power of this man, this great ruler, who has kind of gone down in history. And so this person conquered places to expand the Egyptian empire by kind of leading his army to take over certain places. And in making the empire bigger, he had lots of buildings and statues created. A lot of the statues were of himself, and the buildings kind of represented his power. He wanted everyone to see how kind of great his kingdom was. And so that's just a little background, so you know about this character and to help you understand the poem. And really it kind of talks about the power of man and what we see from Ramesses or Ozymandias against the power of nature, and that romantic idea that nature is the one that's all powerful and man really isn't. Okay, so if we look down here, I've talked about the power of nature, but also we talked about the Romantics wanting social change and that they should be free and not have to have these rules and things like that. So it's always this is going to be talking about kind of how things ruled in the past and actually how they're insignificant now. Okay, so you'll notice it's a short poem. It's a sonnet. It's got 14 lines. Like I said, I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. I think this is going to be the one where you'll be able to go off and do some research and really build on your own knowledge. And that's what I want you to be doing from these lessons, not just taking what I say, but going out, making your own interpretations, and using this time that you've got at home to kind of really get into these poems and really get yourself a good stack of knowledge about them. So just a few things as we go through it. It starts off, I met a traveller from an antique land who said. So this story is being told from someone else's point of view, a traveller. And so we think about there, is he making a point about the current government? All right, is this poem possibly a criticism of the current government? And he's kind of covering his back by saying that this is the traveller's words. This is just a poem about a statue of someone from the past. But as we go on, you'll kind of see that perhaps there's some points that maybe he's making about the king of the country at the time. So two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. Okay, so visage kind of means a face. So it's just painting this picture of two huge kind of stone legs in the desert, with the rest of the statue kind of crumbled around it. So it's that imagery that's really important for you to understand that what these statues would have represented during his life would have been kind of his power, and he would have assumed he was kind of immortalized in this statue, and that was the great extent of this man's power. Except as time has gone on, and so it's been reduced to nothing. And so that's the main message of the poem, really, that no matter how much power you have as a human, it's temporary. Not everyone's going to remember you after this, no matter how powerful you are. Whereas time goes on, our time is very, very short. So that's the imagery, and then we get on to kind of see a bit closer look at this face, and it tells us a little bit more about this ruler and what he was like. So, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. So this is facial expression. So maybe from the frown we get maybe an angry side of this person. Wrinkled lip makes me think about maybe his smugness and arrogance, self-belief and things like that. And then sneer of cold command, I think really kind of emphasizes his ruthlessness, especially with the alliteration there on cold command, that quite harsh k sound, I think really draws light to his ruthlessness and the fact he's using cold. All right, he doesn't make him sound like a nice person. It sounds like he was more of a dictator, perhaps. Tell that its sculptor well those passions red which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. So it shows that the sculptor kind of got the personality spot on in his statue, and then the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed could be referring to the hand and the heart of Ozymandias. Yeah, thought he was above people if his hand mocked them. His heart that fed, maybe it fed off the fear of people or something like that, rather than giving warmth or anything like that. And on the pedestal these words appear: my name is Ozymandias, king of kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. So this is something that's come from his mouth, these words, and I think that kind of just shows his excessive pride, his arrogance, that he wants everyone to look around and look at how powerful he is and what he's achieved. The fact that it says ye mighty and mighty is capitalized, could perhaps be showing maybe he's addressing the gods. Does he think he is godlike? Does he think that even the gods would be jealous of kind of what he's achieved? And so that kind of shows him at the height of his power and that arrogance. And then nothing beside remains. So I think we get a real change in tone there. Builds up, and then nothing beside remains. Yeah, it's very matter of fact. It's all gone. Okay, which kind of links to the idea that it was pointless. It was pointless that he's built all of this, but actually, as time gone on, nothing's there anymore. Okay, around the decay of that colossal wreck. So again, it's talking about the statue, the wreck of the statue. But looking at the word decay, all right, so decay is kind of like a natural process in where things break down. So is it him saying here that nature will always take over? That the power of nature is kind of the only immortal thing, whereas humans are just not humans, and the buildings that they produce are one day just not going to be there anymore. So nothing is permanent, which kind of makes it feel like, what is the point of this power thing and the way society is, if it's always going to be changing like that? Boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So I've got quite a bit of alliteration, sibilance in these last two lines. Boundless, bare, lone, level. And it kind of just, again, gives us this imagery of the nothingness that's around this site, and kind of this complete capitulation of this empire that was once kind of thriving and is now insignificant. It's nothing. Okay. So like I said, there's just a few things. There's loads more stuff in that poem that you can kind of go and look at, which I'll get you to do in a minute. Again, with the structure, I'm just going to kind of touch on it a little bit, but if you can find some other things out, that'd be great. So it's a sonnet form. So I'm pretty sure we've spoken about sonnets before, but they're a 14-line poem. Okay, and they're always about love. So we look at this poem and it doesn't necessarily strike us as a love poem or anything like that, but I mean, we could say it's to do with the love of him or his empire, or something like that. Okay, so like I say, pretty rushed one today, with the hope that you'll kind of take some initiative and go and have a look and really be able to add to your annotations and add to your understanding of these poems. And it'd be great if you can kind of send me some things back, some emails, and saying, oh, I thought of this, what could this represent? Oh, I found this, you didn't mention that, what about this? And that's all the stuff I'm looking for. I want you kind of original interpretations that you've found out from this poem. Okay, so just leave you there with some tasks, again, just to kind of solidify the information of that poem onto you. And then number 5 is obviously in bold. That's what I really want you to do today, is to kind of go out, explore this poem, and find some more methods and the significance of it. Okay, so I'll leave you with